Okay, so let's begin. We can begin with the prayer Dr. Montessori wrote, if you know it. Say it with me, please. Help us, O God, to enter into the secret of childhood, so that we may know, love, and serve the child in accordance with the laws of thy justice and following thy holy law. And place everything in your immaculate heart, Saint Joseph, your most loving Father in heart. We thank all of our angels here. Continue to protect us and guide us. So tonight's discussion, I'm going to talk for a while, but it really should be more of a discussion, is part 2 in our series for adults, not just parents, but adults, with coming to know the child and Dr. Montessori's discoveries. So if you were not here previously to hear the 4 planes talk, you'll need to see that on our website. I think we have a connection to a video on the website. You know, we can't repeat, so you'll just have to do a little background. So we were talking about last week with the 0 to 6-year-old child, the first plane child, about the development, how their absorbent mind is guided by certain sensitivities from the moment of their conception. Language and movement are there from the very moment the new human person comes into being. Language is, all types of language cause the tiny fetus to move in different ways. It's really amazing, the videos they have of that tiny, microscopic little human person. The baby moves differently to spoken language, moves differently to poetry or prose or music. That's how much language develops the human person. And that continues through the first 6 years of life. Language and movement are the 2 longest sensitive periods. Then order is incredibly important in the first 4 to 4.5 years. Sensory perception, the child, nothing's in the mind that wasn't first in the senses. That's why they touch and smell and explore everything through their mouth, and we want them to. And that's a reason it's a little hard to enter a children's house environment after the age of 4 or 4.5, because that sensitivity is fading. So we looked at that. We started with the second plane child, totally different child. Montessori said, if I could give parents a gift, I would give them the gift of knowing that at 7, they have a brand new child. The child has completely changed. They're not that sweet, cute, little chubby cheeked, their teeth are falling out, and the hair gets coarse, they get tall and gangly, and now they want to be around other children in the same plane, 6 to 12. So the primary characteristic is the herd instinct. They want to do things in social groups. And Montessori said, isn't that beautiful that before they step out into society at 12, he puts within us this desire to practice socialization for 6 years, to figure out how society works. They're all about the rules. Justice is a primary sensitivity. Their daily anthem is, that's not fair. They say over and over and over, we talk about fair. This is the time of direct moral development. We know morality begins at conception because we are moral persons. We're not moral doings, we're moral beings. But now, with this sensitivity to justice, now they're directly forming their conscience. And we're going to speak directly about this with the development of the will today. This is also the period of hero worship. And so this is the time that we introduce saints to the child. The young child is only in need of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, the Holy Family. Really, Jesus, the Good Shepherd. They don't need any stories about his friends yet. There's a time for that, and that starts at around the age of 7. We talked about adolescence, and we talked about the 4th plane too. So there were 3 psychic principles that we mentioned that govern the development of the 0 to 6-year-old. We talked about work, just briefly, how important work is. Work that then will lead to concentration, then the third characteristic, independence. Most conflicts between parent and child occur for two primary reasons. The child feels some type of rejection, whether the adult intended it or not, and they are not given appropriate work. It's usually one of those two causes. Many times with the little child, something is out of order and the adult doesn't understand how important order is to a child, and they respond out of the lack of order. But most of the time it's because they aren't given appropriate work to do, or they're feeling rejected by the parent, by the adult. So Montessori talked about ways to help build the child's will. We certainly don't want to control the will or break the will. We want to build that will that's developing naturally along with the intelligence. The good news about the human person, what we believe as Catholics, is even with the effects of original sin, our will is still ordered to the good. The human person still seeks out the good. We don't have to make our children good. They are good. They seek the truth with their intellect. They seek the good with their will. What we have to do is prepare an environment and come to know who the child is, to know, love, and serve. She would draw this circle. She said, I believe the human family is split into two poles of development, just like the North Pole and the South Pole exert a force upon each other that causes the earth to spin in harmony. She said, I see that the human family is divided into the pole of childhood and adulthood. And they were intended by God, just like the poles, to exert a reciprocal influence upon one another. The adult is not sent to control the child. The child certainly isn't sent to control the adult. When they are appreciating one another and respecting one another, there's basic harmony. We come together in an environment, and the more we prepare that environment for the age child we have, the more harmony there's going to be. And both of us, children and adults, work upon the environment. The child works, the young child, primarily 0 to 6, works to change themselves. They carry out their work for an internal purpose. The adult works to change the environment. When we respect one another, when we allow the child to do their work without interruption and without correction, and we do our work, there's pretty much basic harmony. But what we don't know as adults is that children are not working for the end product. A child, when Maggie is showing dishwashing in the 3 to 6 environment, she doesn't say, let me show you dishwashing because we have dirty dishes. She just says, let me show you dishwashing. The child wants to have purposeful activities to do. They could care less if the dishes are dirty or clean. The 3-year-old will wash a clean dish over and over and over again. Their goal is an interior one. All of that movement is coordinating, is integrating mind, body, and spirit. And it literally changes the fabric of their brain. Through this work, she said, the human person incarnates themselves. The young child is an incarnational being. The adult washes the dishes to get them clean. And we typically have the attitude of, I have to do this work. The child doesn't have that attitude. Think of the child at the beach who will dig that hole over and dig and dig and dig and dig, fill the pail, dump the pail out, and do it again. An adult would never do that. We work because we have to get things done. When we allow the child to work for that purpose without correcting them, because she saw that correction closes the spirit. A strong-willed child will act out of being corrected. A child takes a correction as a rejection. We just show them. We show them how to use, here's the dustpan, here's the brush, let me show you how to use it. they might not get the floor clean at all. Maybe they'll pick up one thing. That's not why they're doing it. They're trying to coordinate right hand, left hand. You see how they struggle with these things. We let them struggle because we can't bring about coordination for them. It's the work they have to do. We know, it's scientifically proven, all of this is, but we know if a baby is not put on their tummy, they will not develop coordinated movement to the level that they should. That myelin sheathing does not get worked down the spine. We have, that on a firm surface is incredibly important in that tummy time. And there are different things we can do if a child doesn't like being on the floor, but usually the environment isn't made beautiful for them. All the beauty's up here, and it's not so, so we create a lovely environment below. But that movement, that coordinated movement that they get from these activities is very important. When we don't interrupt the child and we just allow them to do this work and we don't praise them, they'll go on to repeat it over and over, and they'll choose, another activity. So Montessori said we should be raising our children without the use of punishments. She said we eliminate punishments, rewards, and verbal praise for common actions or work that they've done. And we replace it with relationship, reality, and freedom with responsibility. So what does that look like? Relationship. The child wants more than anything to please mom and dad. That is, the parent is everything to the child. So if the adult, let me not start there. They want our approval more than anything, and they should have it. They should have our approval, and it shouldn't be based on anything they do, right? So the more the child knows that, the more well-loved the child is, the easier it is to parent them. When they feel rejected, when the parent is getting angry with them and blows up, and the young child takes that as a rejection, because Montessori talked about before the age of 7, the child is what she called the metaphysical child. The child is one with their actions. We don't come across many people anymore that use physical punishment. I haven't heard of it in a while, but many years ago we were coming across a lot of parents that were using corporal punishment. And corporal punishment is very damaging in the first 6 years of life, because in the adult's mind, the adult, think of the little child, and the adult is really God. We're the first face of God to our children. For some tiny minor infraction, that adult who is supposed to love me beyond anything physically harms me for something so minor. The child has no idea. I can't tell you how many parents have come up to me after all these parent nights I've done and said, I remember being 4, I remember being 5, and getting walloped. I have no idea what I did, but I remember the spanking. The child doesn't, they don't associate, they can't say, yes, they have no power of reflection yet. They're in the period of the absorbent mind, where every action, they are building their brain mind. They can't sit and reflect on what they did. Montessori said if we were going to use corporal punishment, it would make more sense to start around the age of 8. But then the child could easily look at the parent and say, you tell me not to hit. Why are you hitting? I've had many children in my class when, one child would hit another child, and I'll say, people don't hit people. And the child, not so much anymore, but in the past, children used to say, but mommy hits. So what is that teaching them? They do what we do to them. So there's another way. Discipline, absolutely. I thought I need to read, her own words. The first idea that the child must acquire in order to be actively disciplined is that of the difference between good and evil. And it's evil with a little e. We do this, we don't do this. We're very clear about what is done and what isn't done. The liberty of the child should have as its limit the collective interest, so the greater good, and as its form, what we universally call good breeding. We must therefore check in the child whatever offends or annoys others, or whatever tends toward rough or ill-bred acts. So we definitely help our children stop actions that are not beneficial to them or to the greater good. But we do that gently, but firmly, right? St. John Bosco, firm but kind. Always firm but kind. Why don't we use punishments? Montessori looked at the disconnect between a child's action and then a punishment that's issued. So a punishment is something, say the child didn't take out the trash, and that's their job at 8 or 9. They didn't take it out. Okay, now you can't go out on Friday night with your friends. Well, what does going out on Friday night with my friends have to do with taking out the garbage? They don't have anything to do with one another. But punishments are a quick fix for the adult. You know, it gets the child to get up and take the trash out. I won't do it again. But the relationship has been ruptured. We want to go back to relationship. We want to sit and say, okay, how can we do this together? Let's talk about this. Do you need another job? Are you tired of taking the trash out? There's lots of different jobs you could do, or whatever the infraction is. A punishment gets the adult off the hook quickly, but it does nothing to build virtue in the child, and it ruptures that relationship. So it's taking the time. You know, how many parents, January was just saying it before everybody walked in, it takes a lot more time in the beginning to do things the Montessori way, because it takes time with your child. It takes stopping and talking to them, remembering to address something in the neutral moment. But by the time they are 11 or 12, gosh, the Montessori families that I've known, I really can't think of one whose teenagers really go off. They are so stable and, willing to take on the challenge of adult life. So punishment, she said, break relationship. Rewards, she felt, were even more damaging than punishments, because the adult is very smart, we're very cunning, we know what our children like. So we offer candy, or we offer television, or we offer a movie. If you do this, you'll get this. It's a bribe, right? And so then as the child gets older, the bribes have to get bigger and bigger. And again, in Alfie Kohn, in his book, Punished by Rewards, that's a great book. We should have a link on the website to Alfie Kohn's 5 Reasons to Stop Saying Good Job and Punished by Rewards. He said the reward leaves the person feeling manipulated and belittled. But because we're weak and we want the candy, we want the toaster at the bank, so we do whatever the incentive is, we give in. But it's not helping the child build virtue. Work should be its own reward. In Montessori schools, there are no grades, there are no award days, there are no blue ribbons, there's no gold stars. Them sharing their work with one another is the greatest reward. We want children working for the kingdom, right? We want them working for themselves and for the benefit of others, not for a trinket that has to get bigger and bigger. And then verbal praise for common work done. The common one with little ones is, adults will applaud and say, good job, about something. Well, they want that approval, so they might keep doing what they did just to get the approval, whether they want to do that thing or not. Maybe they just learned to do a somersault. Maybe they don't feel like doing another somersault, but they're getting so much praise, they do it, or any activity that we're saying good job about. In
the article, 5 Reasons to Stop Saying Good Job, he talks about being at a playground and an adult clapping and saying, good sliding, as the 3-year-old is coming down the slide. You know, they need to have their own experiences. Just let them slide. They're going to be much happier. You know, there are so many books that have been written about a nation addicted to praise, and I think everybody, well, January and Ryan, you guys are a little bit older now than when we first met. And certainly Brian, I'm sure you see it in your workplace. The younger generation, it's like they can't move without being praised and praised and praised and praised. They do something and then they sit. And where's the motivation? Go on to the next thing. But they wait for the boss to give them because that's how it's been through the school system, and B.F. Skinner, you know, trained us. Yes.
And how did I break that?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I feel like I failed.
Every adult, you are among friends. We are all in the same boat because we were raised this way. I remember being my first school, my first toddler environment, and I had taken 2 Montessori trainings. I thought this was fascinating. The first day, a little girl was coloring really intensely with a colored pencil, red on a piece of paper, and I walked by her table and I said, oh, Mary Grace, that's beautiful. And she looked up and she said, no, it isn't. And she went right back, and I thought, thank you, Lord. She's right. It wasn't beautiful. She's scribbling, and who was I to say anything about her work? She was actively. I'll never forget that. It's 33 years ago that happened. I still see that little mass of blonde curls, and I'm so thankful for her because they don't need it. It gets them addicted to your approval, and then when they get to be 4 and a half. And I'm just looking at you but every single person in here struggles with it. I think. I mean, maybe we've broken it because we've been in it a few more years. But then when they get to be 4 and a half, they start saying, Mommy, am I not good if I don't do that? You know, if we're saying good girl or good boy about something, then they come to realize what good means and what bad means. And I'm being told I'm good if I do this. Well, then am I bad if I don't do that? And so what Montessori said is we are lying to our children if we're telling them they're good because they are doing an action. They are good because God created them. If they never did another thing the rest of their life, they are still good. That's what we want to communicate. We want to be giving the gift of affirmation, that reflecting back of one's own innate goodness. We want to affirm them, and then when they need to be redirected or an action needs to be stopped, we're very clear. We don't do that. We're not going to do that. Let's do this. You know, it's been interesting with the elementary children this week, the ones new to the environment. One of the first questions on the first day, we were saying, how do we want to be with one another? And we want to be kind. We want to, you know, the ones who have been there, we want to not interrupt each other. Yeah, that's a way to help each other keep working. And we want to listen to the teacher, one said. And I said, are we only listening to the teacher? And then one said, well, we're listening to God. Yes, we listen to God. Who else do we listen to? There was kind of, and then one of the children who's been there a while said, to each other. Right, we listen to each other. When someone is speaking, we listen to them. Because we don't want to be doing the raising the hand thing. You know, we don't need to raise our hands. We can just wait until the person finishes speaking, and then we can start speaking. So it's really interesting to see this, you know, coming from just a different approach, and kind of seeing their awareness that, wow, I'm responsible for my actions, you know, and that's so appropriate for that 6 to 12 age. But, you know, if you read this article, 5 Reasons to Stop Saying Good Job, it will really help you break the habit. And you just stop doing it, and you start replacing it with, how much I love you. How much I love you. And if she says, Mommy, did you see? I threw it in the trash can. I did see. You know where it goes. You do know where it goes. And then we give all that how much we waited for you, how happy we are God's given us to you. You're our greatest treasure. All those words of affirmation. We try and identify the child's love language, that I think that's a great book. Is that Gary Chapman? Is that who wrote? That's a great, the love language of the child. Is it time together? Is it acts of service? Is it little gifts? Is it, when we identify that, it really, really helps the relationship. Yes.
And I had just one thing that helped me that I learned from you when you're trying to break the good job. I think I wasn't introduced to Montessori. I think my daughter was around 2, so I did find that out pretty early. But I want to praise them though. I want them to know I'm proud of them. And so saying when they make you a picture and they bring it to you, I made this for you, Mom. Instead of saying, wow, good job, you would say something like, wow. And you wouldn't do this every time, but sometimes, especially if they're used to this praise. I found this easier, where you just do, can you tell me about the picture? You don't have to say good job, you don't even have to say it's beautiful. I don't think it's wrong to say it's beautiful, but then you can say, I see that you used pink and purple and orange. And they're like, yes, I did. Or they just look, and that's enough for them. You just commenting on it.
Back on the work.
Back on the work. Or I see you worked really hard at this. And then they're good. And they don't need that praise, but sometimes they want a little something. But I also think it's great though to put in practice. Sometimes you just can not say anything, but they're really used to that. You can compliment it in a totally different way. Would you agree?
Definitely. Yeah. But if they're used to it, you really have to break it. Because it lowers their inner standard. If they know they just do and Mom goes, that's beautiful. That's not really beautiful. Oh, would you like to take it back and do some more?
We have this little thing where you could write on it, and I'm teaching her how to do the ABCs, and I would do the A, and then she'll trace it. So she'll do A, the capital A, the small A, and then she'll be like, oh, I did it. And I'm like, okay, good job. what can I say or something like that?
If she did it, I would say you did it. You did you connected them. Do you think that's better than the one you did before?
You traced the A.
Yeah.
Just describe it like they do.
Yeah.
And eventually they'll stop coming to you so much.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
you're not giving that. The praise is like addicting.
Yes.
So eventually they'll come a little less.
Yeah, because they want that approval.
Okay, so I realized when I first met Maggie, I needed a whole new language change. So I'm just sharing that with you because I find that it's not just even praising, it's literally like an overhaul of my own vocabulary in the way I speak to my child. And the reason I'm sharing this to you because I think it's not one thing, it's not even praising, it's the words.
It's the entirety. Yeah.
I remember I would always say, I'm like, what did I say? What did I say? Like, I feel like, oh, that's right, because I do think the conditioning that we have is based on the language that we use or abuse, and that's really what I realized I needed to change for myself, a new language. And simultaneously, what I'm seeing, I have 8, and I've got half an hour on the plane, I actually have to hold my older children accountable with the same language patterns, and that's the only way I can do it is that I say, no, those are illegal words, and they know that, because I can't police what's happening with 8 children. It's literally an overhaul of language, and that I think was the easiest way for me to think about it, was a change of vocabulary.
And wouldn't you say you had to change the vocabulary because you were changing your thought toward your child?
Absolutely. But I didn't know what to say, Maggie.
Yeah, right.
So-
And that's hard, right.
Place.
I had to
In-
replace, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
saying nothing is better than,
Yeah.
for a while.
So true.
But Yeah, so
What
often
would
we
Maggie
just
say? I literally,
nothing.
I would like Ryan, and Ryan and I would go back and forth, be like, no, Maggie, don't say that. And like,
We had all those pieces
We
of
say that
paper
to
and
Mom.
we used to give out.
yeah, but it's really, to me, Montessori is actually my formation. It really, that's the biggest thing I've realized was, I really was the one who needed a conversion because I didn't see my child the way God saw my child. And I met Maggie when Jack Ryan was 18 months and he was having terrible twos, which I didn't know, you know, it was my first. And I remember Maggie said, you don't have terrible twos. I'm like, that's just what everybody has. And then he was biting other kids. And he's like, give him an apple. And I gave him an apple, and I remember the understanding of the whole child was actually because you're never taught the
Right.
understanding of the human person. Like, how would you, you know? Like,
Right.
So we can
This is
post,
what
we
we
can post
need.
these books, so one of the things we're trying to do is on the website, there will be resources. Maggie will continually give me resources, books, articles, and then we'll post it there. So you can go in, because this is one talk, but
There's
years
so
of
much,
learning,
there's
right?
so much, and it's so much easier. It brings so much peace and order to the family. That the great benefit I have of being in this for so many years, because we weren't given our own children, my husband and I, is hundreds and hundreds of families that I'm still in touch with from time to time. They email me, Maggie, finding out about Montessori completely changed our life, completely changed our parenting. We're headed down one road where there was just conflict after conflict after conflict. Now there's peace. And as you get to know these people, go to January's house, go to Edel's house, go to, Maggie said, go to these homes where they're doing it and you'll see. And the lack of stuff, because the children need temper tantrums a lot of times, if it's not out of order or being tired, it's usually because they're so overwhelmed with toys. And play never satisfies like work satisfies. Work satisfies the child. Montessori said 3 toys out at a time in a child's room. And we see what they're working with and the one that they aren't, and we rotate it. There's just usually too much. They can't take care of it. They can't. Then we say clean up the room, and they look, and the room has 9,000 objects, and they run the opposite direction, They can't. So when we don't put out 500 Legos, when they're little. We put out, and we widen the freedom as the responsibility matches it. So one of the older ones yesterday said, what happens if one of us doesn't listen, to the teacher? And I said, well, you're showing us who you are then. So, and we believe you. If you show us that we can't trust you or you don't have the responsibility, the amount of freedom that we give you will match your responsibility. And then as we see you grow in responsibility, you'll get more freedom. That should start from birth. The child should, the minute the child is learning to walk, they take their plate to the dirty dish bin. A lot of families I know have a little compost bucket and they have a spatula and they scrape their plate and they put it in the dishwasher. We do for the child way too much. And their interest in doing for themselves is at 0 to 6. She said, Dr. Montessori said, any unnecessary help given to a child arrests development. Arrests development. So they may say, I don't want to, but just a couple of days ago, we were doing a math thing, and the child said to me, I'm done. I don't want to do another. I said, oh, that is okay. You do not have to want to. We're going to do another one. And the child just stared at me, and I said, I'll give you they need to hear that when they're 2 and 3. It's okay that you don't want to. That's fine. Your feelings do not have to be there. But we're going to do it before we go on to something else. When the dishes are cleared, then we can have a story, then we can go outside. It's this first, then that. So we don't have to get mad. you know, Montessori said the big challenge for the adult is remaining emotionally neutral, you know, because especially toward the end of the day, you're tired, a mom with little children, you're really tired. You know, it's trying to keep that calm and follow through on these procedures. When you follow through, I've seen the result of these children, and they are so strong, so stable, so happy, such great leaders. And the apostolate that they're doing with the other teenagers is amazing. But it all went back to these early years and just the mom being very calm and following through. And yeah, maybe 3 more over here screaming or fighting. Okay, just let that go. You're following this toddler through to, okay. Then you can go address whatever, you know. Montessori would say, unless it's blood or fire, we don't stop doing what we're doing. You know, we follow through. Because if we do, we're modeling for the child. And their concentration gets broken. They don't see a procedure all the way through. Okay, so I just want to say this last and then open. So in the end, Montessori said there are 2 remedies for almost every discipline problem: work and relationship. So finding the appropriate work for the child, and the story that I just love to share because it just changed my life. Years ago, one of the missionaries of charity from Kenya, Sister John Biani, we did a 6-day retreat for the missionaries of charity on the Montessori approach. And at the end, she stood up and said, now I know why the children in my village, she said, I never witnessed a temper tantrum until I came to the United States. In my village, the families have 12, 14, 16 children. We have no electricity, no plumbing. She said, I never saw a temper tantrum. Because the minute the toddlers start walking, they start participating in village life. They start picking up firewood. They start stirring the pot with mom. They are purposefully active. They're contributing back. And when they want to play, they just sit down and play. Dr. Montessori said, we don't ever have to teach a child to play. That is in the human person. They will pick up 2 sticks and it's mommy and daddy. Mommy, daddy, baby. The adult doesn't have to get down and play with the child. And then I have just one more story of this dad that this information changed his life. I was giving a series in Louisiana, and the husband obviously did not want to be there. There were about 60 people, and he was in the very back, like this, you know, just fuming the whole time. I'm sorry, you know, his wife made him come. So it was on this topic. He came back the next week, and I was shocked that he came back. And I said, does anybody want to share anything? And he did, and I thought, oh, great. But he stood up and he said, you know, I just thought this was a bunch of junk. I really did. But he said that Friday, it was a Thursday night talk, Friday, on his way home, he thought, okay, because he would go home every day from work and get down. He had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old daughter. And he would play little Polly Pockets with them. And he hated it. He hated playing with these dolls, but he thought that's what he had to do to be a good dad. And he said, I'd be looking at my clock, like, how much longer do I have to do? So he ended up going to the grocery store and got pizza dough and pizza sauce and pepperoni. And he walked in the door and he said, hey, who wants to help Dad make a pizza? And they said, I do. So they rushed up, they stood on the chairs. They started making the pizza. It took over an hour to make the pizza. And at that point, the wife stood up and she said, and I laid on the couch reading a magazine. He said, he was so excited. He said it was the messiest pizza we've ever had, but they loved it. And he said, and he got all choked up and he said, it changed my life. He said, I didn't know that's what my children wanted. They wanted to be working beside me. And I kept telling them, you go play. This is adult work. They want to do what we're doing. Yes, it's going to take longer. It's going to be messy. There's nothing more important we can do than welcoming our children into our work.
One of the things you told us about a long time ago was the learning tower, and we have the same learning tower we did for like 15 years, painted in many different shades, but it's still in our kitchen, and they use it to this day. They work alongside us in the kitchen all the time.
That's great. Yeah, those you've got a great one too. I saw yours.
I just started to laugh because, so Luke has been Montessori from birth. This child is different than Rose. Rose is still very Montessori style with it, but, he loves cracking eggs. And he's gotten really good at it, but sometimes I like secretly will crack the eggs real quick, like when he's in the other room. Because it's like so much patience, right? Like, but okay, and then he'll catch me too. Like, he cracked an egg, and so then I'll get him his own pan and I'll get him an egg. But like, he's like, he doesn't miss anything. But I'm laughing because I know that's not good that I've done, but like,
No,
but it takes so much patience to always involve him in cracking the eggs. It's messier, but I do involve him 90% of the time. But he's gotten really good.
and he's happy.
He's two. Like, he cracked a couple eggs today, no shells in the yolk or okay. It's like, you're better than your sister.
Going to be making an omelet when he's 3.5. You can't always do it, but the more you do it and the more the effect you see it has on the child, how happy they are and how peaceful they are after they've had that real work with you, you tend to do it more and more and more. Because you're only going backwards by doing it with them.
So I know when they're young, like it's part of the process, but at what age do you make them redo the task if it's not done correctly? Or is not swept right?
Yeah, that depends. That's a hard, almost every answer with the Montessori discipline is, it depends. I mean, do you have a really strong relationship with that child? Do you find you're always correcting that child? I mean, the answer would be around 6.5. And we're going to look at the 3 levels of the development of the will in a minute after our discussion. So if you have a good relationship with them, you could ask them to go around and see. I would just like you to go around and check to see if everything got picked up off the floor. And, oh, Mom, it did. I'm just asking you to check. Okay. And then you might let it go that time, and the next time, it really depends. If you've got a strong relationship with them, you can say, honey, I think you missed a few spots. It just really, if it's a preteen and they're going to, all you do is criticize me, you wouldn't, right? You just let that go. So it just depends.
What would you say the 6 to 12-year-old work in the home is? Because 0 to 6 was like no problem.
Right.
They're all like, let me
Right.
get up in your business, and I'm here.
Right.
I'm here for it.
So
These
6 to
guys-
12, now we put them in charge of making the job chart. So the family meeting is one of the most important things that can happen. There's a really good book we found, just came out last year, Montessori for Every Family. It's a great book. It's not a Christian book, so there are a few pages in there that, I kind of roll my eyes at, but 99% of it is fantastic. And 3 parents, after reading that book, 3 different families, came back to me and said, that family meeting has changed our lives. You choose one day of the week and you have a 15 to 20-minute meeting. The parents run it in the beginning. As the children get older, each child takes a turn running it, and the parent goes over the topics for the family meeting. Everybody gets to say something. It's not the parents are the CEOs and the children are the pawns. It's a family. We're all together. We're a team. Everybody gets to say something. And that's where things come up. So at a family meeting would be a great time to say, we realize you guys are perfectly capable of making the job chart for and I mean, they're both very creative. Ava, I'm sure, would love doing a poster with magnets, with whatever. You can do that book has a lot of examples of jobs, how to do jobs 6 to 12, chore jar, card game with, then they talk about how often to change the jobs. But you're putting them in charge because they are all about justice. And I've been taking out the garbage now for 2 weeks, and she only had to do it for 3 days. So you put them in charge of it. Okay, what can you do about it? And you're sitting, and the little ones are watching the older ones, and usually the little ones want to help the older ones do their job rather than have their own. The little ones love to do laundry. At 4, that is a great. Yeah, yeah,
She
in the
already
machine, and
had it.
show them
Yeah.
how
My
to turn.
1-year-old.
That's fantastic.
Kara would be like, oh, you folded all of the washcloths? She gets so mad if I don't involve her in it. That's good, great, okay.
So the three levels of, Montessori identified three levels of the development of the will. The first level being obedience to self. And that's from conception to about the age of 2, 1.5 or 2. The child has an action in mind that they want to carry out, batting at the mobile, trying to get the thumb in the mouth. And we allow them to struggle and struggle and struggle at that freely chosen task till just before the moment of they're going to dissolve into, they're going to crumble, they're going to give up, or they're going to crumble. Then we can say, may I help you, maybe move the rattle just a little bit closer so the child can grasp it. But we allow them to obey their inner impulses, what they're wanting to do with their body. I think St. Thomas said, like, the finality of an act is like 10% of the act. 90% is interior, is what goes into, so we're seeing the last expression of it. So it's really damaging if we keep interrupting a child when they're trying to carry out an action. Again, they take that as a rejection. That's where our whole observation comes in. We observe, we don't pick the child up until they've disengaged from whatever they're doing. Then the second stage of the development of the will happens when they're walking well. So 15, 16, 17 months. All of a sudden the child hears mom or dad say, where are my shoes or where are my keys? And the child goes over and gets them and brings them to mom. And the parents go, oh, you knew what I was saying. Oh my gosh, you brought me my keys. So Montessori said they understood what you were saying long before their body could carry it out. So that's really important that we know our child is hearing and understanding everything we're saying. That's why we never talk about a child in front of a child. That is, I think, a cause for huge temper tantrums. The child feels totally powerless when the adult is talking about them right in front of them. We would never do that to our spouse or our friend, and yet we act like our child is, we can just say anything we want to about them. So from the very beginning, we don't talk about our children in front of them. So they're hearing, they're understanding everything. So now the second stage is the carrying out of commands. And she said this is a great time to build the will. We give them many, many commands that they are able to carry out. Will you bring mommy her purse? Will you turn on the faucet? Will you, there are a million things that the little one is just dying to do. We're asking and they can say yes or they can say no. Most of the time they want to do it. And that's a long stage, carrying out of commands. Then the final stage is the power to obey. And that comes closer to the age of 5.5, 6, when they are capable of consistently obeying. And then when they aren't, we have to look at that and say, why not? Because Montessori said it's not that children are disobedient, it's really that they're too obedient. The child is very obedient when the adult is, collaborating with them rather than trying to control them. There really are far fewer conflicts. So with the building of the will, she said the primary way we do that is offering the child a choice between two goods. And we start doing this very early on. Would you like dad to put the mashed potatoes on your plate, or do you want to put the mashed potatoes on your plate? So the question isn't, do you want mashed potatoes? It's, that's in there. You're getting mashed potatoes, but you have some power over it. You can put them on your plate, or mom can put them on your plate. Do you want me to cut your chicken, or would you like to cut your chicken? Here's a knife, here's a child-sized knife that works. Would you like to? Boy, the new children are just all about using that knife. I think many of them have not used a knife before. Like cutting those apples into teeny and the lemons. They love to use a knife. Anything, that you can think of. When you get out of the bathtub, do you want to read stories with Dad, or would you like to work in the kitchen with me? When we're getting in the car to go to Mass, would you like to carry this book or this book? Would you like to bring this or this? And if you have one of these, really strong-willed little lawyer-type minds, and they say, no, I don't want either one of those, I want that. That's not one of the choices. You may choose this or this. Even if you don't mind if they chose that, don't give in, because the child is now in charge. And ultimately, they're going to be very unhappy because they can't be in charge. A 4-year-old cannot be in charge. So that's okay. Maybe next time that will be a choice. The choice today is this or this. What would you like? What? You can cry. Okay, if you take too long, Mom's going to choose. Okay, I'm choosing this one. No, I wanted that one. You don't give in. You can do next time. Then they know you mean business. You're respecting them. You're giving them a choice. But they are not in charge. The adult is the adult. The child is the child. But we don't get angry. We don't. Then they know you're going to be fair about it.
So when your child is, you're having dinner with the family, and you have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, and it's challenging for them to sort of sit there, right? When do you, or how do you help them say, this is dinner, if you get up, dinner is done? Do you just sort of let them, or when can they have the capacity to do that? Is it till later?
It's later. So
Okay.
Montessori believes that the young child should be fed first, like before the age of 5. So at a weaning table, and then at family dinner, they come just for the socialization. And if they want to try a little bit more, but they really can't sit that long. They're in that sensitive period for movement. We shouldn't expect more than 15 minutes.
So it's up to 3.
No, the sensitive period for movement doesn't fade till 5 1/2.
So we have that table, and then when they don't, like that's where I am right now. I find that I want to be able to enforce the capacity to, maybe that's not the right word, learn to sit
You
down.
want them at family dinner.
Well, so we have the family dinner, but they do have their own table,
Okay.
and they sit there. But a lot of times they want to go with us, like you said, afterwards and eat. But I find that even Rock today was sort of eating and then running around.
Oh,
I'm like,
no.
And I'm
That's
like,
a
I know
hard
this is
habit
not
to
right.
break. Yeah. I mean, it requires you sitting with them. If they don't, they're, yeah. Yeah, when children take a bite of food and then they get up and they run around and come back, that is a real, you're showing me you're finished, so your plate goes up, okay? In our culture, we sit when we eat, and when you're finished, you can run around.
So when they do that, Maggie, and honestly, the real challenge is like I was playing cards with Eva because before I wanted her to spend time with me, and so like,
Yeah.
can you please sit down?
Yeah.
So that's my, in my wonderful perfect, I could,
Yeah.
do that, and I thought that's why I was I need this boundaries.
Yeah.
And the enforcement of those boundaries is that they don't. It's that you have a lot of things going on
Yes.
with other children.
That's why we share the 4 planes of development with our children, so that Aoife knows the most needy people in this family are the ones 6 and under. They need me more than anybody else. I know I want to be with you too. This is part of the challenge of a big family. We're going to have time. This time's not going to come again for them. And this habit, if they get into this habit, this is the time for building healthy habits. It is so hard to break.
What do you feel like? What do you feel about having older children participate in kind of helping with the younger children? I mean, because I know Ava for sure, and I find that she feels connected to me when her and I are working on something with Luca.
Yeah. Yes.
Only Luca.
That's with the
Nobody
new
else.
baby, that's how you help the other baby. You and me together are going to
Yes.
care for this baby.
Yeah.
Then that baby doesn't feel left out.
Exactly.
We're a team and we're going to help care for this. Not, okay, you got it because I got this one now. It's, do
Yeah.
it with me, do it with me.
I was
But
just,
I think, yeah.
because like Rose is 6 and Luke is 2, and I'm a single parent, and there's jealousy, and I want Rose to tell me, oh, you're doing all this with Luke, or you're holding Luke so much and you can't hold me, and it's hard, it's really hard to like balance that. But I'm thinking specifically for mealtime, right? Because the toddler or the 2, 3-year-olds, they only eat for 10 minutes probably.
Yeah.
Realistically,
That's
they're gonna sit there for 10 minutes. So maybe Phoebe and Aoife, like I do this with Rose, like so me, Rose, and Luke, we sit together and we don't get up. I mean, this is not a good dinner time. So like I'm thinking maybe involve them. Hey, I have to sit with Rock and Zig. And you can explain real briefly because they're young. Can you help me? Or do you want to join us and we can ask Rock and Zig about their day together? And it can be like this fun bonding thing. And I try to do that with Rose. But this is really making me aware. I need to explain it a little more. Like almost give her that role. Can you help me keep Luke at the table for 10 minutes? I try to do that, but I'm kind of trying to keep her at the table for 10 minutes too. She's freshly 6. But maybe going out of my way to explain that he's needier. And I could do that a little more, and I think it could be really helpful. Make them a partner of yours instead of trying to split the time. It's so hard to split